Pardon me. Welcome back to the channel. And we're live, and today, what am I talking about? Knife maintenance. I realized the other day at my last in-home cooking class, my knives, a lot of them are extremely dull, to the point where they're getting unsafe. And I got a little problem with my trusty Wusthof here, old Stabatha. I'll get really close to the camera here. You can see that there's a little bit of a dip right there. This is the bolster. This is a forged piece. This is big, thick metal. Not really going to be able to change that on a stone very easily. But that is one of the problems. It's actually like right there. It's really hard to see maybe on the camera, but I feel it when I'm working with the knife. Or I feel it most. I have a cutting board here. If you can see, there's a little bit of an air gap right in there. It's actually gotten better because I've been working on it. But that little air gap, when you're using the back half of the knife to cut stuff, things aren't cutting thoroughly. So, plus it's dull. I did work on it yesterday too a little bit. When knives get really dull, I kind of give them a couple of days. A little bit here, a little bit there. I try not to rush it, because when you're sharpening enough with the stone, you're removing material. You can easily change the geometry of the knife, and typically for the negative. Stone is really the best way to sharpen a knife. It's going to be the most long lasting. If you have one of those devices where you turn the knife upside down and pull, you're just sharpening the blade, and you're not sharpening the face of the knife. You're not coming up the sides at all. So those do a good job. They're very effective, but you end up pulling off a pretty big wire off the knife. I did it one time to a really dull knife, and I really hard. I pulled across, and 2 wires popped off, like the length of the knife. I'm like, ooh, that wasn't great. And of course, it didn't stay sharp very long at all. So they almost do too effective of a job. If you're going to use one of those, I would think of it as maintaining more than pure sharpening, and you want to be very careful. Just the weight of the sharpener or the knife itself is enough to do the job. A lot of times when I use those, instead of, I don't even own one, but instead of pulling, what I do is I set it down on the counter, and I just use the weight of the knife when I come across. 1 or 2 gentle swipes, and then finish with the seal to hone. But today I am using a stone. These are inexpensive. This one was $5. They used to be 4, so they've gone up, considerable in price. They have 2 sides in 2 different colors. This one, the rougher side, is this lighter, I don't know what color that is, tan, and then this side, this darker, gosh, I can't even, maybe I am colorblind. Anyways, this color is a smoother texture, and you kind of have to feel, and when you feel, you actually kind of want to just feel it really lightly at a diagonal, and you can kind of feel how light or heavy the grind is. So you want to start on the heavier side. I like a rectangle stone, and I like a whetstone. Whetstone, I use water as opposed to mineral oil. Mineral oil stones are probably the most effective. However, it's kind of messy, and you have to have mineral oil on hand, and they bathe in mineral oil. So you'll see what's known as a tri-stone, and you pick up and you turn, and there's a bath of mineral oil in the bottom. That's probably the best, but it's a mess, and they're extremely expensive. These are $4. I don't know why a tri-stone in a mineral bath oil is $400 or $500, and one of these is $4. I'm not quite sure why that happens to be the case, but that happens to be the case. There are some fancy knife sharpening tools out there where you basically clamp it to a table, and then you set the angle, and it's got an articulating arm that works off the center point, like a pivot. And no matter where you turn this arm, it's always, let's say you set it for 20 degrees, it cannot deviate from that. And then you run the shaft up the knife, and the stone is at a perfect angle. You do it by hand. Those are pretty cool, I gotta admit. I think those are extremely neat. I've seen those for a while in the for sharpening tools like axes, shovels. You should sharpen your shovel, believe it or not. items like that. But very, very effective for axe sharpening, and a sharp axe is a safe axe, just like a sharp knife is a safe knife. I do some firewood processing at the urban homestead, and my axes are a mess. I'm not very good at sharpening them because it's very different than sharpening a knife. A knife takes subtlety. I think a axe takes double the amount of subtlety because there's just a lot more material you're working with. Okay, so this is wet, and then I have it sitting on a wet towel. Some people will do this under continuously running water, and they'll even set up like some of the knife sharpening systems out there. It'll be a bridge that goes across your sink. Let's say this is my sink. It'll be a bridge that goes across the sink, and then you can move your faucet. You can drip water continuously. That's pretty cool as well. They tend to be relatively expensive, as well as just, again, good old-fashioned stone. Fun little story. Years ago, I was in Seattle I worked for Sur La Table, and they had a big corporate training event for all the GMs and resident chefs, which was what my position was. So I got to go to Seattle, and there was Mr. Global, the guy who started and owns Global Knives, was there, and he was doing a knife sharpening demo. It was this little Japanese man, and he was just sharpening knives. He didn't speak any English, but it was fascinating to watch him work. And I learned a couple of things. So I'm going to share what I learned from him and from my experience. I'm going to wet this stone down a little bit. Okay. So what you want to do is, if I push, what I'm doing is I'm pushing material off the stone. So it's best to pull. And then when I flip the knife over, if I go like this, I'm pushing, right? The blade is coming towards the stone. So I come towards me in this direction, and then when I flip the knife over, I push away from me. That way it's consistent, and I'm not removing material off the stone. You want your stone to remain level, and the stone can get a dip in here. And the problem with that dip is that it can be inconsistent for sharpening. If you are fancy, you have two stones, and you can draw an X with a pencil and some lines, and then take one stone and polish the other stone until it's level, till all those pencil marks are removed, and that'll make sure that it'll show you a completely flat surface, which is best. This is a brand new stone. I dropped my old one and it cracked in 50 pieces. I was all bummed out, but I went to a restaurant supply store, and there they were. Now, at the height of the pandemic, couldn't find them. So that's part of the reason maybe why my knife's gotten a little dull. Pardon me. Okay. Here we go. So, working with my blade away from me. So yes, I'm pulling towards me, but the blade, again, is not cutting into the stone. Very little pressure. Okay, interesting. See this little tiny piece right there on the stone, that little mark? Every time I run my knife over it, I can feel it. There's a little raise right there in the stone. See if I can. There we go. Ooh, much better. I just kind of got in there with my fingernail, popped it out. I can feel how easily the knife comes across the stone. I can feel it's coming across easier. And I'm starting to see here some markings on the stone. That's actually the metal that I'm removing. Now I'm dragging the hilt here, this fat part here. I'm dragging that across the stone a little bit more, because I have a little bit of a rise right there. So I'm trying to bring that down just a touch. Okay. Now flip over, and again, now I'm going to work away from me with the blade coming away from me. So I think of this as working to my right side, and then when I flip it over, I'm working to my left side. And the reason being, when I have the knife facing in this direction with the blade away from me, I'm working to the right of the stone, and then when I flip over, I'm pushing forward towards the left of the stone. So now I'm going to work the left side of the knife. Well, the right side of the knife, but to the left. Now, the way I cut, I tend to have the knife kind of tipped just ever so slightly in this direction, and that helps keep the knife from food piling up. And I'll do like this little wrist flick to keep food from piling up on the side of the knife. But the downside of that is the knife is sharper on one side than the other. It's inconsistent. So that is one of the, oops, let me flip over. One of the downside. I could feel that on the stone, and you can hear it too. Let's listen. Oh. Okay. See that? That was brand new stone. I'm going to flip it over and go out on the smooth side. One of the things I'm going to do here is just feel. And when I run my knife, so what I do is I take my knuckles, push it against the side of my knife here, and then I use that as a pivot point. Hold my finger here. Just brush back and forth. And I can feel that the knife is sharper on this side. So I need to, it's sharper on this side, so I need to push it that way a little bit. How do I set the angle? Well, you can. I've done this before. So I put my finger here and I use that to set the angle, like so. But I just trust my senses. Flip. Okay. Good. Is it shaving sharp? Close. 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 Now that my knife is sharp, I can go both directions because the knife is gliding across the stone much easier. It's not, little burrs and edges aren't catching. Ooh. That last, coming across and towards me, what I'm doing is I'm removing what's called the wire. So as you work a knife, the little bead under, if you looked under a microscope, it would push to the right, then it would push to the left, push to the right. And that last swipe, I use good pressure, set a good angle, come back towards me, and that's removing what's commonly referred to as the wire. Yeah, that is almost shaving sharp. Now, I don't get my knives ridiculously sharp. And the reason being is I would rather use good knife skills and rely on those, let the knife glide through the food, as opposed to just having the sharpest blade available. Because I do nick myself on occasion, but if my knife is not razor sharp, then I don't cut myself. I can kind of stop myself before I end up cutting myself. It's my paring knife. I only use this for cutting meat, and it's dull. So these are hard to sharpen because they have a kind of a complicated edge here at the bottom. So I'm going to flip over back to the firm side. I'm going to rinse this off. Part of rinsing as well is trying to get rid of some of this metal off the stone. Good. See, it's refreshed. These are inexpensive enough that not only can you have one, you can have two. Not only can you have two, if one wears out, just replace it. Okay, same rules apply. Now you can see here, I'm setting the angle up high because I don't want to miss this part. And I'm really taking my time from the base of the knife up to about there, just so that I can try to get all that. Okay, flip. Still dull. It's hard to sharpen. Ooh, better. Yes. You can hear it just singing along. Yeah, good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now that I have a sharp knife, here's what I'm gonna do, bonus show you guys how to butcher pork loin, pork tenderloin. Okay, pork tenderloins traditionally come 2 to a pack. These are from King Soopers Kroger store. They sell these nationwide. You can get them in almost any store. Prices come way down, $9.38 for 2 pork tenderloins. That's back to pretty much what they cost pre-pandemic. Height of the pandemic, these were $20, $25. You know, they said that groceries went up by 30%, but I don't believe it. I feel like groceries went up by 100%. Because again, I was paying $9 or $10 now when they were $18 to $20 during the height of the pandemic. So, you know, it's a lot more money. And I'm definitely seeing, you know, not only the price at the pump, but definitely, you know, when I go grocery shopping for in-home cooking classes, I have a kind of a self budget in myself. When I first started here, now granted it's been almost 6 years, I started $10 per person, which you go, oh, that's not a lot of money, but 10 people, 12 people, you know, you're buying steaks, that's half the budget right there. And then with the rest of the budget, I could buy all the produce, which is very produce heavy, dairy, cheese, milk, eggs, and then things like oils, staple, salt, those kind of things. I would just buy a staple pretty much every time I went to a grocery store. So I always had, you know, salt, vinegar, oil, butter, lemons, garlic, shallots, and I would buy that kind of in bulk, so that I could kind of spend my groceries wisely. So I'd be at about $100 to $120 per person. So between $10 and $12 per cooking class. And there was a pandemic grocery bill, it was $300. You know, so triple. Same menu, just really frustrating. Hello, my new viewer. We're sharpening knives, and I'm just about to butcher some pork loin, pork tenderloin. complaining about grocery prices. Okay, when you buy pork loins, you get 2 in pack, and you have quite a bit of silver skin. This is a connective fascia that you find in between all muscles. Why do they leave that on there? So they can sell you this weight. And if you cook it without that on there, this tightens up. It's edible, but it's unpleasant. So just like anytime you're using a boning knife, it's the same thing. If you haven't seen my butchering videos, I have one on how to butcher a strip loin, parts 1 and 2, my 2 most popular videos I've ever made. And I feel like they're a really good place to start learning how to butcher. Okay, so you know the scoop. Equal and opposite pressure, puncture the middle, work away, flip, work towards. And my knife is only slightly sharper than it just once was. If you want to see more on knife sharpening, I'll rebroadcast this later. Check it out. Okay. And I have more knife sharpening advice on this channel. Hope you had a good holiday. I had a great holiday. I was in Phoenix, escaped the winter cold. Okay, so there you go. This is a terrible job right there. Right? See all that? So look at how much extra meat I can pull off. Okay. This is what we do in culinary school. And you look and go, look, you're wasting my ingredients. Look at this. I paid good money for that. You know, so yeah, that was a little sloppy. I don't feel like my knife's any sharper. Must have been really in bad shape. I think I just changed the angle enough to make it harder to work with. I was used to it. All right, and then this feathery fat that you can pull off with your fingers. You can remove some of that as well. These are little connectors. I'm gonna remove some of that. Okay, there you go. So that's all. That's it. That's nothing compared to the size of this. You do have a little bit of a bull nose here. I just leave that on. If this were a beef tenderloin, that'd come off. And then just repeat the process. There is a left and right. You know, if you think about us or cows, you know, these are actually 2, nope, they go like this. So the bull nose is on the top. So these are probably off of 2 different animals because this one's bigger than this one, but that is a left and this is a right. Sometimes you get 2 lefts, sometimes you get 2 rights. Sometimes you get one really big, sometimes you get really small. I believe the packaging is automated and they're shooting for a weight so that they can hit a price point. So, you know, they're probably looking to keep things under $10 at least right now. Okay. Yeah, this knife's terrible. I need to give this a lot more work, which I'll do. But remember I was saying when I'm sharpening knives, I like to kind of come back to them a little at a time and try not to rush it. Just give them a little at a time. That really does help. Okay, right here. Pork loins. This is going to be, I'm going to do this pan roasted Asian style. And we're going to do a little bit of surf and pen. We're going to do salmon and pork loin. Okay, I'm happy with that. And last thing, snow peas. I want to talk about snow peas here real quick. And then back to work. Okay, fantastic. And my knife, a Ciro. These are just a few dollars. I think this knife was $6. Semi-flexible. And my fancy $200 Wusthof, I don't have to bring it to work. Yeah, my Wusthof was $200 for a boning knife. And the Acera, which is almost identical, is $6. And I love my Wusthof, you know I do, but I don't know. Now that I'm older, I maybe a little bit more responsible with my money. So, you know, this big guy, you know the story behind that. All right. I hate it when this happens. I had to go to H Mart. I hate H Mart. H Mart is a nationwide chain of Asian grocery stores. I believe they are Korean. The largest Asian food market chain in North America. I believe they have Korean owners. I'm not quite sure. Don't quote me on that. They have stepped up their game a little bit. To their credit, when I first started going to H Mart, there's 2 here in the Denver area. There's one close to where I work and live, 92nd and Sheridan, Westminster, north of Denver. And then there's one in the heart of Aurora at Yale and Parker Road. That one's big boy. And it's a super market. They've got the one down there. It's got a sushi restaurant inside of it. It's got a noodle shop. They make rice cakes, exploding rice cakes. I was walking by the exploding rice cake counter, and the lady would time it so that the rice cakes would explode when people would walk by, and scare the hell out of them. And then she would, like, you could tell she was just like, got him. Like, that was the only joy in her life, was terrifying passerbys. Groceries, live fish tanks, and then the butchery that you can only find, like if you wanted to do Korean barbecue, they have all that stuff. Or if you want to do pho and you wanted that raw meat that you put on top, they cut all that. And they do have a good product. The customer service is crap. I was in there shopping, and there was all these ingredients I'd never seen before. I'm like, whoa, what's this? What's that? I didn't know any of the names, and like I'm just like so excited to be in there. This is many moons ago, almost 10 years ago. So I was taking pictures with my cell phone, and this guy comes up to me, taps him on the shoulder, and he says, "I'm sorry, sir, you can't take pictures inside our store." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll stop." He goes, No. I need to see your phone so I can delete the pictures you've taken." And I was like, "That's not going to happen." He goes, "Well, that's our policy." And I said, "Well, it's your policy, but there's no law against taking pictures inside the store." He said, "Well, I'm going to call the police on you." And I said, "And tell them what? I didn't like your policy?" Like, following a policy is not a matter of being a, there we go. It's not part of being like a law. Policy. It's not like, come on, relax. But he was pretty insistent. So I was like, okay. And I had a big shopping cart full of stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just take my business elsewhere. He's like, yeah, you should leave. So I did, and left all my groceries there, which was a pain in the neck because I needed all that stuff. So then I had to go to another grocery store. But this guy was, and he spoke very good English, and he was dressed very nicely, and they sent him over to harass me. And I thought that, and I explained to him, I'm like, you're doing the opposite. Like, because I asked him, why do I need to delete these pictures? And he goes, we don't want you to open your own grocery store and beat our prices. Like, I'm going to open an Asian grocery store. Try to beat your prices by 1 penny a pound. Think about that. But that was their reasoning. Culturally, I think it's a very different way of doing business. So I try not to shop at H Mart. I just needed shiitakes and snow peas, both of those which are typically available at King Soopers produce, but they didn't have them. So I had to go to H Mart. Yuck. Boo. All right. Because these are for a cooking class, I don't need to do all of these. But I'm going to show you what we're going to do here. And these are a pain in the neck. All right. So you have 2 tassels. You have a tassel and a root end. So what you do is you crack the tassel, like so, and you pull down. Then you crack the root end and you pull down on the other side. This side tends to be a little shorter. And you do that for every single one. And don't cheat, because if you get some of that in your sugar snap pea or your snow pea, guess what? Tastes like dental floss, it's unpleasant, and people aren't going to like you anymore. Those just raw, don't need to blanch them, stir fry, sesame oil, sriracha, salt, or chestnuts if you want to get serious about it. Delicious. All right, well, I know a ton of people tuning in, but live feeds are back. I'll be back next year. I'll see you in 2023. Still trying to figure out the live stream thing, so thanks for tuning in if you did. Part of this is experimenting and seeing how different ways I can help my channel grow, try to get the algorithm to pop, which isn't very easy, I'm discovering. Come on, YouTube. Give it to me. But I'd like to thank all my supporters, anybody who subscribed, anybody who thumbs up, comments on my videos. Thank you so much. All right, we'll see you next time.